So now let's go ahead and implement the part that lets us select which cards to draw. And basically, when the user clicks on one of these cards, a couple of things need to happen. It needs to toggle between showing the card face and showing the card back. And it also needs to update the appropriate input in the form. So let's go ahead and start by, in our poker code, where we're outputting the cards right here. This is where we store the source. But after we change the source to a playing card back, this is going to be gone. And if we want to restore the playing card, we need to get that from somewhere. So we could make this an array in JavaScript or whatever, but the easiest thing to do is to actually just store it on this HTML element. And there's a way of doing that which is pretty standard, which is to use data dash and then whatever you want for the name of an attribute. So anything that has a data dash in front of it is basically ignored by the browser, but JavaScript can access it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just basically going to repeat this part here and make this one be data source. So now I have the same data but in two different places, and so I can restore from the data source when I want to show the card face again. And then I also need to know which card is being clicked so that I'm going to be able to update the right hidden form field. So I'm going to add another data element, data-id, which I'm going to have to pass in. So double quote, single quote, dot, $ID dot, like so. So this is going to take an ID parameter as well. And then I'm going to need to clean this up a little bit because it's looking a little crufty. Let me go ahead and break each element onto a separate line. So, and we'll do the same thing here. And we'll do the same thing here. And then we'll have one at the end to close the thing off. Like so. So this wasn't actually necessary, but it makes the code a little easier to read. And now we have to pass this ID in. So this should be the number 0 through 4. So let me change this. Instead of using a for each loop, I'm just going to use a for loop. For card is 0, card less than hand cards, card plus plus. Instead of passing in card, now we're going to pass in hand subcard, so hand sub 0, hand sub 1, and so on. And then we'll also pass in card. So let's see if we got everything that we need on the web page. Go back to the load, reload, view page source. Let's look at these image tags. So now the image tag has a class, it's got a data ID, it's got the original source, it's got the same contents in data source, and that should be everything that we need for this. So now to actually respond to clicks on the card, we're going to need to do some JavaScript. And in this init method, I'm going to call a new function called make cards clickable. And then function make cards clickable. I want to get all of the cards. And those are the things with the class of card image. So I want to get all these card images. So cards is equal to document.get elements by class name. and then the class name is card image. So I sort of think this wants to be a constant. Let's see if we have a constant for that already. No, so let's go ahead and hook that in. So let's go ahead and create an ID constant. Call that card class. And to get card class here, I'm going to add a PHP island. Okay, so now I can change that in one place. And then I'm going to loop through these cards. So for var I is 0, I less than hand cards, echo that. I plus plus. First I'm going to get the card, and then I'm going to add an event listener to the card. So this is going to be a click event. And then this next part is a little advanced. But I'm going to call toggle card card. So now toggle card will get called every time I click on the card. And what do we want to do? Well, the first thing we're going to do is get the ID for the card. So ID is equal to card.getAttribute. Two T's there. So card.getAttribute, and then I need to know the name of the attribute. So let's go ahead and card ID is data-ID. And let's make sure we use that in the form as well. So here, I'm going to use data ID. It's actually card ID. Okay. So now I know these are referring to the same thing. So that gives me the ID, and then the name of the input in the hidden form is going to be card plus ID. So let's go ahead and create some helper functions here. So card key plus ID, and this has to be in quotes. So that will be card 0, card 1, and so on. I'm going to get the value of that form field. So that's getting the ID. And this is going to be setting the ID. So we'll set value equal to draw. Now, I'm already making a lot of these PHP islands here, so it might make sense to actually create some variables in JavaScript to hold these, but we'll see how that goes. So now for toggling the card, basically what we want to do is say if getDraw of ID is equal draw, and that has to be in quotes. Then we do one thing, else we do something else. So this basically means the face of the card is showing and we're set to, it means the back of the card is showing and we're set to draw a new card. And they've clicked on that. So we want to set draw of ID to keep. And we also want to show the face of the card. So that's going to be card.source equal to card.getAttribute. And we need a data source constant. So let's make a card source constant as well. And then let's make sure that we're using this in here. So this is going to be card source. So that handles clicking on a card that we were drawing. And then if we get here, then we're set to keep the card, so we want to switch that to draw. And here we're just going to set it to the back. Like so. Okay, so those are the things for toggling the card. Let's go ahead and see how we're doing so far. So I'll reload. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the console. So data is not defined here. So we forgot the single quotes in toggle card. So single quotes here. And oh, I have an extra single quote. Okay, so got another error. cannot read property value of null. So let's go ahead and put a breakpoint here and see what we're getting. So ID is 4, card 4. So that's document.getElement by ID card plus 4, which is null. So what do we actually have on the form? Let's go ahead and view the source again. So the hidden form, oh, I use name. I also need to use ID here. So the input has to have name and ID. So let's look at our form. So here's where I write the name for each card. And let's go ahead and add a copy of that and change this to ID. So this will be name card 0, ID card 0 value. That looks good. So now get element by ID should work. Reload. And, oh, not quite. So that JavaScript code that I told you would work, I actually have a little problem in there. So I'm sorry, but this is going to be a little technical. This has to do with something called a closure in JavaScript, which is definitely an advanced topic. So don't worry about exactly why this works, but let's go ahead and try it. So 5, 6, 7, 8. And it works. So now if I just click on that one and hit draw, and we'll go F12, look at the network, reload. Let's take a look at the post data. And we see keep, draw. So let's go ahead and actually hook that up. Finish that bit. So I need another function to do this. So I'm going to create a function called DrawCards. And I'm going to pass in the hand and the deck. And I can't define DrawCards here because that would violate PSR1, which is a requirement for this lab. But I'm going to go ahead and put it in here. So function DrawCards takes a hand and a deck. And what I'm going to do is use a for loop for card equals 0, card less than hand cards, card plus plus. I'm going to get draw equal $ under post sub card key dot card. So this will be either draw or keep. And then if, what's that? Draw equal draw, then I'm going to set hand sub card equal to deck sub 0. So that's the first card in the deck. And then I'm also going to set deck equal to array slice of deck 1. So the remainder of the card after the cards after the first card. And then I'm going to be modifying hand and modifying deck. So I'm going to pass those both in as reference. And if I've done everything correctly, it should actually draw a card now. So let's go ahead and reload. And this last card should change. And it does. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I actually hit my straight. Now you'll notice if I hit reload again, I get the same exact result. And this will happen no matter how many times I hit reload. And that's the reason that we're actually passing the deck in as a parameter here instead of picking a card at random. So you're guaranteed to get the same result. It's a cheating preventative, but this seems to work. So I'm going to go back here, hit reload, and let's keep the king and queen and toss everything else. And it worked. So we went from 10, 6, 4 to 9, 8, 3. Try one more time. Pair of kings.